They called us quaint. Obsolete. The galaxy laughed when they saw Earth's ships held together with rivets, coffee stains, and duct tape. But when the stars lit up with 500,000 human dreadnoughts, the laughter died, very, very quickly. The Galactic Council chamber resembled a cathedral carved out of starlight. Hollow panels shimmered above tiered balconies where ambassadors from 100 species watched with varying degrees of boredom, condescension, or predatory interest. At the center podium, an image rotated slowly, a grainy clip of a human battleship lumbering through space. Its steel-gray hull bore the unmistakable scars of welding and patch jobs. The ship's engines sputtered, coughing blue fire like an asthmatic dragon. The Valari delegate, slender, silver-skinned, draped in fabrics worth more than a star cruiser, laughed so hard her voice echoed across the chamber. Is this a warship, or a scrapyard given engines? Surely humans do not fight with these relics? The chamber rippled with laughter. The Threx warlord slammed his armored fist against his throne, scales clattering. I've seen freight haulers with more menace. Give me 10 of my warriors, and I'll tear that hull apart with bare claws. The Saren scholar adjusted his head fronds, frowning. To be precise, the design is crude. Kinetic weapons? Primitive. Propulsion? Chemical-based. It is remarkable they even achieve orbit, let alone combat. The laughter crescendoed, species after species mocking, deriding, pointing at the projection like schoolchildren around a broken toy. And then, as though the entire galaxy needed a reminder of why it should never mock too loudly, Ambassador Marcus Hale cleared his throat. Hale stood at the human delegation's modest platform. No ornate throne, no shimmering fabrics, no ceremonial banners. Just a plain desk, a battered chair, and a pot of coffee steaming beside a stack of files. He rose slowly, buttoning his jacket with the unhurried ease of a man attending a Sunday town meeting rather than representing an endangered species before galactic powers. His smile was faint, polite, disarmingly warm. Ambassador Hale of Earth, the council speaker intoned. You have heard the commentary on your fleet. Do you wish to respond? Hale picked up his mug, inhaled deeply, and exhaled with theatrical satisfaction. There's nothing like coffee brewed in a council chamber where 10 species have already decided you're irrelevant. A murmur rolled across the balconies. The Valari delegate arched an elegant brow. Irrelevant? Surely not. Quaint, perhaps. Endearing, like a child playing with toys too large for its hands. Hale chuckled. Funny thing about children with toys. Sometimes they figure out how to break windows with them. The Threx warlord leaned forward, teeth glinting. You dare threaten this council with toys? Threaten? Hale's voice was calm, almost soothing. Oh no. Humans don't threaten. We simply clarify consequences. The chamber fell quiet. For the first time, amusement faltered. A Saren scholar adjusted his datapad. Ambassador, the record shows your fleet numbers less than 3,000 ships. None rival the standard galactic dreadnought class. The consensus is clear: humanity is not a significant military actor. Hale tilted his head, as though impressed by the recital. 3,000, yes. We like to keep the smaller ones visible. Keeps expectations manageable. Smaller ones? The Valari scoffed. Yes, Hale replied, stirring sugar into his coffee. You wouldn't expect us to bring the real guests to the party first, would you? That'd be rude. The chamber rippled with unease. A few nervous glances darted toward the holoscreens, as if expecting more ships to flicker into view. The Threx growled. You bluff. Hale met his gaze, utterly calm. And if I am? He set down his cup, folded his hands, and smiled as though explaining algebra to children. Consider this. Humans are the only species in this chamber who invented global annihilation before they invented space travel. Nuclear fire came before interstellar drive. That tells you something about priorities. Silence. Heavy, choking silence. The Valari delegate tried to recover, forcing a laugh. Nuclear toys, yes, but still toys. Hardly a match for the fleets of the Council. Hale's eyes twinkled. Funny. That's what we told ourselves too once. Until we realized toys scale up beautifully when you multiply them by a few 100,000. A murmur spread, sharper this time. The Saren scribbled furiously. The Threx's grin faltered. Even the council speaker shifted in his chair. Hale leaned back. You've studied our history. You know what we do when we're underestimated. Sometimes we call it the Manhattan Project. Sometimes Apollo. Sometimes the Internet. Every time, it starts with laughter, and ends with headlines that make the rest of the world sweat. The Valari sneered. You cannot seriously compare your crude history with. Oh, I can't, Hale interrupted gently. Because the pattern's the same. Underestimate. Dismiss. Laugh. Then the sky lights up, and suddenly nobody's laughing. His aide leaned in, whispering. Hale listened, nodded, and stood. He buttoned his jacket again, voice quieter now, almost intimate despite the vast chamber. The galaxy thinks it knows us. Thinks our ships are rust and our weapons outdated. That's fine. Underestimation is the sharpest blade we wield. The Threx snarled. Speak plainly, human. Hale's smile didn't waver. Plainly? Very well. You've seen the little ships. The rust buckets. The coffee-stained relics. What you haven't seen. He tapped his datapad. Well, let's just say we've been redecorating the stars. The chamber erupted in questions, shouts, scoffs, denials. Hale let the noise build, savoring it like a comedian waiting for the perfect pause. Then he raised his cup in a mock toast. To laughter, he said softly. It makes the silence that follows so much sweeter. The council speaker banged the gavel, demanding order. Ambassador Hale, you imply threats of galactic consequence. This council requires clarity. How many warships does Earth command? Hale drained his coffee, set the cup down with a deliberate clink, and smiled with the warmth of a man offering directions to a lost tourist. Enough, he said. Enough to light the sky when the time comes. The chamber froze. The Valari's sneer evaporated. The Threx finally looked uneasy. The Saren muttered equations under his breath, as though already calculating impossibilities. Hale turned to his aide once more, voice just above a whisper. Make sure the lights are ready. The stars could use a little decoration. And then he sat down, calmly flipping through his files as though the chamber hadn't just drowned in the echo of his words. The chamber did not calm so much as fracture. Whispers spread like static across every balcony, layered voices overlapping in disbelief, fear, and defiance. The Valari delegate finally stood, her jeweled fingers trembling though her voice tried to remain regal. This is theater. Humans spin tales, exaggerations, to compensate for weakness. 500,000 warships? She laughed thinly. The resources alone would bankrupt a quadrant. A Threx warlord leaned forward, tusked grin sharp. Let them claim such nonsense. If true, I would relish the chance to test their steel. The Saren scholar, pale fronds quivering, interrupted. You fools! Humans are dangerous precisely because they exaggerate less than you think. History shows their pattern, dismissed as weak, then they reshape the battlefield. The archives call it. He paused, searching his notes. Punching above their weight. The Valari rolled her eyes. Metaphors. Always metaphors. Humans do love their dramatics. Marcus Hale rose again, voice carrying with infuriating calm. We do enjoy metaphors, yes. Easier than explaining bluntly that underestimating us tends to shorten lifespans. He smiled as if sharing a private joke. We're polite enough to warn you, of course. It's the least we can do. Warnings? The Threx barked. You speak as though your kind holds a blade to our throats. Hale gave a small shrug. Not a blade. More like a storm. Blades are personal. Storms don't discriminate. The room stilled again. The council speaker, a neutral insectoid whose species thrived on procedure, snapped his mandibles. Ambassador Hale, this council requires transparency. If Earth truly commands more than the 3,000 registered ships, prove it. Hale's eyes twinkled. You want proof? You'll have it. But proof is expensive. Surely the galaxy understands the value of a dramatic reveal. The Valari scoffed. This is a child's game. Show us your phantom fleet or admit your lies. Hale set his datapad down, folded his hands, and leaned forward just enough that every delegate instinctively leaned back. You really want me to show you? Fine. But I should warn you, humans love showmanship. When we light up the stage, you may regret asking. The Threx warlord growled approval. At last! A chance to measure your mettle against ours. The Saren scholar whispered. Fool! He isn't offering a duel. He's baiting a trap. The Valari waved him off. A trap requires power. They have none. Let us call their bluff. We assemble a council fleet for demonstration. Their ships against ours. A spectacle, nothing more. Hale raised a brow, as though amused by the eagerness to step into quicksand. A demonstration, you say? Delightful. Shall we host it in orbit, or do you prefer an audience? Humans do enjoy fireworks when there's a crowd. The council speaker tapped his gavel. It is decided. A sanctioned display of force. Humanity will bring its best. The council will assemble a fleet for comparison. The outcome shall inform our verdict. A ripple of approval spread through the chamber. The Valari smirked. The Threx cracked his knuckles. The Saren scribbled in despair. Hale simply smiled, as though he'd maneuvered the entire room into a corner with nothing more than coffee and courtesy. After adjournment, ambassadors spilled into private corridors. Snippets of conversation drifted around Hale as he walked leisurely, his aide hustling beside him. They can't possibly have that many ships. Maybe it's all drones, not true warships. Even so, where would they hide them? The aide whispered urgently. Marcus, they're not convinced. Shouldn't we? Hale cut him off with a grin. Patience. You don't show the whole deck at the first shuffle. Let them think it's theater. That's when the reveal burns brightest. Later, in a side chamber, the Saren scholar approached Hale privately, Franz trembling. Ambassador. You conceal much. Tell me, for knowledge's sake, is it true? 500,000 ships? Hale regarded him for a long moment, then offered a smile so calm it chilled. Truth is flexible. Numbers matter less than intent. But since you asked politely, yes. Give or take a few thousand. The Saren's frowns wilted. Stars preserve us. Stars won't, Hale said softly. That's why we build something that will. Back in the council chamber, preparations were announced, fleets to gather, observers to attend, the galaxy to watch humanity's humiliation. Valari courtiers spread rumors that humans would bring patched freighters and call them Dreadnoughts. Threx warriors sharpened blades, salivating for glory. Saren scribes filed urgent warnings that no one read. And Marcus Hale? He sat quietly in his quarters, brewing a fresh pot of coffee. His aide finally snapped. Sir, you sit there as though this isn't madness. They've forced us into a test we cannot. We can, Hale interrupted, pouring 2 mugs. The trick with traps is making your opponent think it was their idea to walk into them. Right now, every species in that chamber believes they demanded this. Not us. The aide hesitated, then asked in a hushed voice. And when the fleet appears? What then? Hale handed him a mug, the faintest glimmer of steel in his polite smile. Then, he said, we stop being the punchline. Words spread quickly. News feeds blared across colonies. Humanity to showcase fleet before Galactic Council. Commentators mocked Earth's bravado. Comedians staged skits of duct-taped warships sputtering against sleek alien armadas. The laughter grew louder, sharper, more confident. And Hale watched it all, sipping his coffee, eyes never leaving the stars beyond the viewport. You hear that? He murmured to his aide. Hear what? The laughter. Let them enjoy it. When the sky changes, the silence will be deafening. The demonstration was staged above a neutral gas giant, its swirling storms chosen for dramatic effect. Alien fleets assembled in disciplined lines, banners glowing across their hulls. Dozens of species had come, some to witness history, most to enjoy the comedy of humanity's humiliation. The Valari fleet shimmered in elegant formation, ships like jeweled daggers glittering under starlight. The Threx arrived in brute carriers, hulls armored like the beasts they worshipped. Even the Saren, cautious as always, brought a modest flotilla, sensors primed to record every metric of human inadequacy. On the central observation platform, delegates filled viewing galleries. Hollow cameras streamed the event across the galaxy. Commentators mocked the Rust Bucket Theater about to unfold. At the human platform, Marcus Hale sat as though watching a sports game rather than standing trial before galactic power. A thermos of coffee steamed beside him, and he just pulled out a pack of cards, idly shuffling. Ambassador Hale, the council speaker intoned. The demonstration is ready. Present your fleet. Hale looked up, casual as ever. All right. Just remember, you asked for this. First came 3,000 ships, the ones the galaxy already knew. They emerged from warp with uneven burns, patched hulls, and engines that wheezed against the void. The Valari erupted in laughter, their delegates nearly collapsing against their chairs. Pathetic, one sneered. They arrive with cargo freighters dressed as warships. The Threx roared with delight, tusks flashing. Is this the might of Earth? My children's training craft are fiercer. Even the council speaker clicked his mandibles in dismay. Ambassador Hale, is this mockery? Do you present scrap heaps as dreadnoughts? Hale didn't answer immediately. He poured himself a mug of coffee, took a slow sip, and only then replied with a faint smile. Scrap heaps? Oh no. Those are just the warm-up act. The Saren scholar frowned. His sensors flickered with anomalies. Wait. Something else is. And then the stars blinked. One by one, lights appeared across the void, until the darkness itself seemed to fracture. At first, they resembled new constellations, points of blue fire where none should be. Then they moved. Engines ignited in silence, 500,000 dreadnoughts decloaking in perfect formation. They filled the horizon, rank upon rank stretching into infinity, glowing lines of steel and fury. Their engines bathed the gas giant in neon light, as though a new sun had risen. The laughter died instantly. Delegates gasped, shouted, some fell silent altogether. The Valari delegate's jeweled hand covered her mouth. The Threx warlord, once so eager, leaned back with an expression that was no longer glee but something closer to fear. The Saren scholar trembled, frowns quivering violently. Impossible! This is not possible! Where were they hiding them? How? Hale set down his mug. His voice was calm, almost tender. You asked for a fleet. We brought one. 500,000 dreadnoughts, give or take a few still polishing their cannons. Hope the seating arrangements suit you. On the observation deck, the alien fleets wavered. Captains scrambled to relay orders. Some ships edged backward, their captains unwilling to admit to panic but unwilling to remain so close. The Valari delegate's voice shook as she tried to recover her poise. Trickery. Holograms. You cannot sustain this number of warships. Hale gave her a pitying look. Holograms don't cast shadows across a gas giant. Look closer. See the storm bands lit from orbit? That's not projection, darling. That's mass. The Threx warlord slammed a fist on the rail. Magnificent, and terrifying. Even we did not think humans could breed ships like vermin. Breed? Hale chuckled. Oh, these beauties aren't bred. They're built, forged in silence while the galaxy mocked us. Every laugh, every dismissal, bought us more time. You handed us centuries of cover. And now, he gestured toward the glowing wall of steel. Now you see what grew in the shadows. The Saren finally spoke, voice tight. No species could maintain such numbers without collapsing its economy. Unless... He trailed off, horrified. Unless what? Hale prompted, smiling. Unless they turned their entire civilization into a war machine. Hale's eyes twinkled. Give the scholar a gold star. The council chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates shouted, some demanding retreat, others calling for immediate strikes. Valari aides fainted. Threx warriors howled between awe and unease. Saren scribes recorded every detail with shaking hands. Through it all, Marcus Hale remained calm, shuffling his cards as though nothing extraordinary had happened. He placed one card down on the table, an ace of spades, and tapped it lightly. "Here's the thing," he said conversationally. "We're polite. We're patient. We gave you a chance to laugh. But patience doesn't last forever. And neither does laughter." A single human dreadnought broke formation. Engines roared, cannons primed. Hale raised his voice just enough to carry through the chamber. "Let's stretch our legs, shall we?" The ship fired once. A bolt of kinetic energy ripped through space, crossing the gulf in seconds. It slammed into a barren moon orbiting the gas giant. The surface cracked, split, and then disintegrated into a rain of molten shards. Silence followed, a silence so complete it felt like the vacuum itself had swallowed sound. Hale leaned back, satisfied. "That was one," the Valari whispered. "One ship, destroyed a moon." The Saren scribbled furiously, muttering, "Power beyond scale, each dreadnought a planet killer." The Threx warlord, chest heaving, finally admitted in a low growl, "Even we cannot match this." Hale folded his hands, polite as ever. "And yet you laughed. That's what I find so charming. Humor's important, don't you think? Keeps the fear at bay." His smile sharpened, just enough to reveal steel beneath the courtesy. "But now, the fear can have its turn." The council speaker's voice faltered as he banged the gavel. "Ambassador Hale, this is unprecedented. Such force threatens the balance of—" "The balance?" Hale interrupted gently. "Oh, the balance tipped long ago. You just didn't hear it fall." He rose, smoothing his jacket, and cast a final glance toward the fleets trembling in orbit. "You wanted a demonstration. Consider it given. The next move, dear delegates, is yours. Choose wisely. The stars are brighter now, but they can just as easily go dark." And as the gas giant burned with reflected light from 500,000 human engines, the galaxy finally understood, the laughter had ended. The Galactic Command had imagined their encirclement flawless. Hundreds of fleets formed a tightening noose around Sol, their admirals confident that Earth's desperate show of force would collapse under sustained pressure. But reality broke differently. The first wave of dreadnoughts moved like predators released from a cage. The great human ships, each kilometers long, tore through the outer lines with brutal precision. Energy beams cut across black space like lightning, reducing alien destroyers to drifting husks. Missiles streaked from silos the size of towers, their impacts igniting fireballs that turned entire formations into graveyards. From the command station in Earth orbit, Admiral Helena Vera watched the unfolding chaos with the composure of a surgeon. Around her, officers relayed data streams, enemy movements, casualty reports, shifting patterns of resistance. She absorbed it all, her voice steady when she issued orders. "Anchor Fleet 2 to the flank. Rotate Dreadnought Wings 5 and 6, cut through their carrier screen. Do not chase retreats, drive the wedge." The holographic map flickered, alien markers collapsing under the relentless advance. To an untrained eye it looked like madness, hundreds of ships pressing in from all angles. But Helena saw threads of weakness. Every overcommitment, every shift in formation revealed the arrogance of commanders who thought numbers equaled inevitability. She smiled faintly. "They still don't understand." On the flagship Imperator Dawn, Captain Elias Rourke leaned against the command rail as another barrage discharged. His ship, a leviathan of steel and plasma, cleaved forward with engines howling like thunder. Alien salvos splashed against its shields, sparks of light dancing across the armor, but the dreadnought did not falter. "Report," Elias said. "Outer defensive ring breached," his tactical officer replied. "Enemy casualties exceed 60%. They're regrouping, but their command channels are in chaos. Several admirals are issuing conflicting orders." Elias allowed himself a sharp breath of satisfaction. "Good. Confusion is our greatest ally. The alien fleets had spent centuries honing strategies against each other, predictable duels, ritualized deployments, engagements that followed doctrine to the letter. Humans had no such reverence for order. They treated war like survival, chaotic yet deliberate, improvisation sharpened into an art. The Dreadnoughts didn't merely engage. They feigned retreats, lured fleets into crossfires, then collapsed upon them with overwhelming violence. Squadrons disappeared into the void, reappearing from warped shadows behind enemy lines, severing supply carriers and communications relays. Every maneuver was a blade slipped between armor plates. In the galactic command chamber above Kitharus Prime, alien leaders stared at their displays in disbelief. The war room was a hall of stone and crystal, banners of 1,000 species draped across vaulted ceilings. Now, those same banners seemed like memorials. "This is impossible," hissed Counselor Rennick of the Valarax, his mandibles clicking in agitation. "They cannot field such numbers. They cannot sustain this pace." "They already have," replied a quiet voice. The speaker, an elder strategist of the Drellith, narrowed her eyes at the glowing markers. 500,000 dreadnoughts. Not rumors. Reality. And they are not scattering them recklessly. They are wielded with purpose. A murmur spread through the chamber. Some shouted for retreat. Others demanded escalation. The once proud council, rulers of the galaxy's balance, suddenly resembled frightened diplomats arguing over their own survival. One younger commander slammed a clawed fist against the table. "Deploy the reserves! The humans cannot be everywhere at once." The elder strategist shook her head slowly. "Reserves mean nothing against predators who already stand in your heartland." Back above Earth, Admiral Helena received reports of the Galactic Council's turmoil. A smile tugged at the corner of her lips, though her eyes stayed cold. "Transmit the next phase?" she said. Her aide hesitated. "Ma'am, are we certain? This will leave no possibility of reconciliation." Helena turned her gaze toward the blue curve of Earth, gleaming below the station's viewport. Cities pulsed with light, oceans shimmered beneath clouds, life thrived despite the scars of past wars. Her voice carried the weight of steel and memory. "They burned a colony filled with children and farmers. They thought Earth would kneel. There is no reconciliation." Orders relayed. Across the Armada, new commands flashed, encirclement maneuvers, planetary bombardment interdictions, cutting not only fleets but also the infrastructure that fed them. Dreadnought wings ignited warp drives, vanishing in coordinated bursts to strike deep into enemy supply lines. On the alien front, panic mounted. Systems that had not seen war in centuries now blazed with sudden fire as dreadnought groups materialized above their skies. One planet awoke to find orbital platforms falling in ruins before they could even raise shields. Another watched helplessly as their fleets were dismantled piece by piece, their commanders screaming into broken comms before silence consumed them. The galaxy had assumed humanity's power lay only in its home system. They had not understood the depth of Earth's preparations. The centuries of silence turned into construction, stockpiles, training, and a doctrine of war no alien species had conceived possible. Now they understood, but far too late. On the Imperator Dawn, Elias received a transmission from Admiral Helena. Her holographic figure appeared crisp despite the storm of battle. "Captain Rourke's status? Enemy command is fractured," Elias replied. "They've lost coordination entirely. Some fleets are retreating, others are fighting to the last ship. It's unraveling, Admiral." Her eyes held his with an intensity that could burn steel. "Do not mistake unraveling for surrender. Desperation breeds rash choices. Maintain pressure, but prepare for their strike. They will attempt something catastrophic." As if on cue, an alert blared across the bridge. Enemy signatures spiked, massive power readings, concentrated in the core of the Galactic Armada. Elias narrowed his eyes. "They're charging superweapons." Helena's expression did not waver. "Then we show them what a real weapon is." Moments later, dreadnought wings aligned into a lattice formation. Energy pulsed between them, arcs of light connecting vessel to vessel, weaving a net across space. At the center, reactors thundered, building power beyond conventional limits. The aliens unleashed their superweapons, colossal beams of condensed plasma, enough to vaporize fleets. But when they struck the lattice, the dreadnoughts absorbed the energy, redirected it, and hurled it back. The sky itself seemed to shatter. Entire alien lines vanished in white fire, their superweapons turned against them in a single devastating reversal. On every channel, across every fleet, alien voices broke into panic and despair. The myth of galactic supremacy collapsed in seconds. In the war room of the Galactic Council, silence followed the reports. Counselors stared at the wreckage of their fleets, their weapons, their pride. "They have remade war itself," whispered one. "They have remade us," said another, with bitter awe.